Have you ever heard a musical artist described as having great chops? What does that mean? Well, the term chops is slang in the music business that refers to an artist that has developed great skills over time, whether they are a musician, composer, producer, or other titles associated with the music business. This is Scott Grimaldi, your host of Got Chops. Join me as I interview one musical artist per episode that I've had the pleasure of either performing, recording, or work with in my career. Plus, I'll be interviewing artists I've always wanted to speak with. We'll discover how each artist developed their chops, listen to their stories, and much more. This is Got Chops. My special guest artist for today is a flautist, world woodwind player, and recording artist from Vienna, Austria. That's her on the track behind me, playing the duduk, an Armenian double reed woodwind instrument, on the newly released Netflix film Broad Peak. Her performances can be heard on numerous film scores and soundtracks that include Harry Potter, The Rings of Power, and Frozen Planet 2. Most recently, my guest artist recorded 9 of her world woodwinds for the Vienna Symphony Orchestra Library that include the Dizi from China, the Zurna from Turkey, and the Bansuri from the Indian Subcontinent. This multi-talented flautist and world woodwind player certainly got chops. Please welcome Veronika Vitazkova. Good evening, Veronika. This is Scott from Got Chops, the podcast from New Jersey. How are you?
Hi, Scott. I'm doing great. I'm looking forward to talk to you.
The same here. Thank you so much for granting me this interview. For my listeners, I know Veronika Vitazkova only from social media, especially her Instagram posts. She's an incredible flautist that has also created a career playing a variety of world woodwinds that we'll talk about today. So, you're calling from Vienna. It's evening there, right? What is it, about 6 o'clock or so?
Yeah, 6:30.
You speak English very well.
Oh, thank you very much, but I don't think it's true. I could get better. Actually, I was much better before I came to Vienna, Austria, and I spoke only English before. Slovak, and I learned English, and then I came to Vienna, and I spoke only German for the next 10 years. So
wow,
that makes my English, that made it worse. But now I speak 2 languages. Both bad, but we can communicate.
Well, I can understand you quite well. I always admire people that can speak in different languages. It helps you, especially as an artist. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
So as a flautist and a world woodwind player from Vienna, and you're a recording artist, as I just mentioned, are you familiar with the American music slang got chops?
I was not. I knew that it meant something, so I Googled it, and it has something to do with, like, I can do something really good, right? Like I'm specialist in something, so I got it, something in that direction.
Absolutely.
True?
That's exactly right. Have you ever heard other musicians from Vienna ever use that American slang term?
Not really. Maybe the Americans which came to Vienna, maybe they use that, but they talk a lot anyway. So
Okay. So, how would you refer to an artist that you're listening to? What kind of adjectives or special things that you say in Vienna to say, wow, they are really magnificent at what they do?
like in German or how would, because in German I would say Wahnsinn. It was like Wahnsinn is something like incredible, a Wahnsinn, and I would nod my head like yeah.
Perfect. Sounds great.
That's something like yeah, he got it, she got it, amazing.
So, do you come from a musical family?
Not professionals, but my mom was singing a little bit, and my father was playing guitar and saxophone and everything, but everything on a not the professional level. But he was trying everything out.
So, at what age did you begin to play and study music?
I went to a music school, like my parents sent me to a music school when I was like 6, and that was only for this preparation class. So I learned some notes and so on. But there was a really, really strict teacher, and she didn't even let me finish one line and always told me wrong again, and I was crying as a little child. So then since then my parents saw that okay, this is not the way. She should have actually fun and not cry all the time. So they took me away from that music school after a few months, and then my father just saw in the music store tin whistle. It was tin whistle, and there was a little cassette and a little book with some songs, Irish songs, and there were the fingerings under the notes. So I still could not read the notes really well, but with the fingerings you can manage how to close the holes and play. And with the cassette I heard how it should sound, and then from the age of 7 until 12 I was just playing this Irish whistle.
When did you finally discover flute and get interested in that?
Yeah, I was like, I mean, I knew what is a flute, but I was 12 and I started to think like where I go to the, how you call it, middle school, like gymnasium or what kind of education. And I really liked music and I was actually good in it. I played with my father some festivals and concerts, and I was this little kid with the whistle playing really fast, and people like that. And I didn't think it was difficult because no one told me, so I was just like la 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 la, jumping around. And then my uncle, I think he had some very old broken flute, and like this classical Western flute, which is in orchestras, and he borrowed it to me, and then I started, and then I went to the music school again at age 12 or 13, and in 2 years I learned everything what other people learn since they are children. So I learned the notes and the chromatics and everything, and then I went to the conservatory to study properly.
That music conservatory in Slovakia, how do you pronounce that?
Conservatorium.
And then you went to the University of Music and Performing Arts in Vienna.
Yeah, that's just 1 hour ride. So I come from Slovakia, Bratislava, and then and Bratislava and Vienna are the 2 capital cities of Slovakia and Austria, which are really very close to each other. So it takes only 1 hour train ride. And my teacher at conservatory in Bratislava always send us, all students, go to master classes, go abroad, do something, take this class, go play for that teacher. And actually all her students managed to go somewhere abroad or to really good teachers. And yeah, I didn't went so far away. I went to Vienna.
So what degrees do you hold from these places that you were just talking about?
I mean, the conservatory in Bratislava is like the middle school, or I don't know what's the English word for it. High school. High school is in America, right? You call it high school. So conservatorium is like high school. It's from 15 to 21. Yeah, 21. And then I went to the university. Actually, the last 1 or 2 years I was finishing conservatory and already starting the university, because since I could travel like 3 times a week to Vienna, that was no problem. And then I moved there, and then when I finished the conservatorium, then I moved to Vienna and I just stayed here. So this is my 13th year here, I think.
Interesting. Here in the States, when we hear someone say conservatory, we're talking about a music college, where you receive a degree or 2 or more in music in your field. When we talk about people that go to performing arts high school. That's what we call it, performing arts. And I guess where you're at, it's called a conservatory. That's very interesting.
Yeah. In Czech, I think in Czech Republic and Slovakia we call it conservatory. In Italy, it's already what you mentioned. It should be the higher education. But in Austria, there is also a conservatorium. Actually, now they change name, but it's confusing. Like everyone calls it as they want. But that was only like a high school, and then I went to the real university. And my degree is I don't know how to like. I'm not master. I'm magister of arts. I'm in the old, not master, but magister. But it's technically the same. It's only different letters you put in front of the name.
I understand that you're on tour with the Vienna Chamber Orchestra and the Symphony Orchestra of the Volksopera. I hope I said that right. It's an opera house in Vienna.
Volksoper. Yeah, I was playing during my studies a lot of there, but now I'm doing more solo stuff and recording. So actually, during my studies, because my teachers at the university were members of Volksoper Orchestra, right? So I went to jump in, and I was substituting very often there. So, but nowadays I don't really do that very often.
But you have played with other orchestras and or chamber ensembles, correct?
Yeah, I still do. Yeah, it's very nice. Like the classical music in Vienna is really popular, and there are plenty of concerts every single evening. Everyone is playing something somewhere. Like every little palais here has some little chamber concert. So that's really nice.
That's great. So when did you become interested in world woodwinds and becoming a world woodwind player?
That's an interesting story because, as I said before, I actually started with the Irish whistle, with the Irish tin whistle. So it was always in the back of my head. But then I went to the music high school, and then I went to the university, and of course, then all around me there was only classical music and the concert flute and nothing else. So I did what everyone else did, and I was just focusing on this instrument. What's good because I learned how to play it on a high level. So that's the good part. But I was always interested in this music from other parts of the world, but I never really spent time with it. And actually, first when Corona really hit and everything was locked down, then I brought some Chinese food from China when I was on a tour, and now I finally had time to play it and get better. And I was always before playing once a month or once in 2-3 months some concert with Irish music, but it was never like the main focus of my work. And now during the lockdown, I had suddenly so much time to do some research, to find teachers online, and I had a really amazing duduk player from Armenia. He told me which kind of duduk should I buy, and then we had some lessons, so I got good in this. I mean, I'm not good, but I'm learning, and many other instruments. I was like, I need to buy this, I need to buy this, I need to get this, and then people online started to send me videos of instruments. Like, what is this? Do you have it? Can you play it? And then I asked them again, like, where could I buy this instrument? Where is it from? I don't know the name. And like there was really nice communication during the pandemic, and I started to assemble lots of instruments. That was the one thing. And the second thing, there is this flea market online in Austria. I mean, I think it's all over the world, but in Austria, they really love to use it. And during the pandemic, all people had at home, you have some old clothes, you have some old instruments, you have some presents which you brought from Bali and you don't want to store it anymore. You are doing these big cleanings. And then you put it on this website. And lots of people were cleaning their houses in Vienna. and suddenly they started to post, I have this flute from Africa. I have this here. I don't know what it is. And I saw it's an amazing instrument. I immediately need to get that. So during the pandemic, I was just walking and outside trying out instruments and buying them or they were giving me them for free because they just wanted to get rid of it. So I really got many instruments, really wonderful instruments from this online flea market, from random people. That's very funny.
Wow, that's a great, interesting story, and to acquire all those. So how many ethnic woodwind instruments would you say you own and play?
I mean, I have around 70, 80 instruments now, but like some of them are, like the Irish whistles. I have like 7, 8 of them. I have in each key one. So it's not like I play 70 different instruments. It's like some of them are in different keys. But it's a lot. But I'm still learning now. The Bulgarian Kaval is a big challenge, and there's always something new coming in, and I try to find time and learn it, and then use it in projects, and that's really fun.
So you mentioned one of the instruments comes from China, and then I think Ireland, the penny whistle. What other countries do these woodwind instruments come from? The world woodwind instruments that we're talking about.
So which is really special instrument, it's fujara. It comes from Slovakia. It's actually a huge recorder, but only with 3 holes, and it works on the overtone scale, and the 3 holes combinations of this opening the holes. But the sound is actually, this video went viral, and then I got attention from lots of people and composers because of this one video which I just posted at home. Like, look what I have! It's a very interesting instrument, and people were like, "What is it? Oh, I never saw anything like this before." So so fujara is definitely one of the most interesting instruments I have, and not many people know it. Then I have shakuhachi from Japan, Dizi from China, duduk from Armenia. Native American flutes are wonderful. I don't have enough of them because I have a feeling you need like 70 instruments until you get all the Native American. There are too many kinds of them, but they're really wonderful to play. And so on. A pan flute, pen pipes, you call it, and so on. So really nice collection.
Oh, it sounds wonderful, and I've seen your Instagram post of the various instruments. So how do you learn these instruments? Is there a place online you can go for the fingering chart, or you're in contact with someone that plays, a particular instrument? I find that fascinating how quickly you learned how to play all these instruments.
Yeah, it's a really combination of these things which you said. I always trying to find myself. I use my very good friend YouTube, and there are lots of people putting lots of very good informations out there and sharing them. And then when it stopped me at some point, like I cannot really do this articulation or ornamentation with the Indian music, with the Bansuri. Then I found a teacher. Actually, this one I found in Vienna, so I went for 1 or 2 lessons, and I just need little input, and then I try again myself, because I have this background of playing the flute anyways, and the Irish flute, so I'm a fast learner, so that's the good part. And mostly online, but exactly for duduk, I needed a teacher because that's a double reed instrument, and with flutes it's very easy for me, but with double reeds, that's already a different story. And duduk is really special. You cannot compare it with anything. So definitely I got there a teacher. I took even one lesson of Irish music because from a guy from Belfast. I just wanted to know exactly, like I was doing this ornamentation since I was a child. When I heard it from the cassette, I was telling you when I was small. And during the pandemic, I was like, but I should really know exactly what I'm doing, like how the people there do it. And I cannot travel there. So let's find someone online and let's have a nice talk and lesson. And especially with these instruments, I need someone to play it for me in slow motion so I can realize what ornamentation they are doing, like what they're doing with the breath and the fingers. And when I find that out, then I can do it again, and I have it in my repertoire.
You seem to be a very intuitive learner. A tactile, visual, oral, you zero in on something that you've never seen or heard or played before, and all of a sudden you know exactly how to approach it. That's a great gift.
When I got into the Chinese music, so it was like 1 week, like, okay, this week I will really focus on the Chinese music. I was listening to Spotify playlists of Chinese music for hours. So I understand the vibrato which they make and very like the effect which they have during the play. And for example, the shakuhachi, I was listening podcasts about how it's everything connected with the breath. And there with shakuhachi, you cannot make any mistake, because if you play the mistake, it's not a mistake, it was meant to be. And this is exactly the opposite of what you learn at the Viennese University of Music, where you play Mozart, Beethoven, and so on. So it was really refreshing for me to hear, like, you cannot really make a mistake, because when you play, it's what happens. It's you and your instrument in this time, and your breath and your fingers, and that's what happens. So it was meant to be. So the concept of mistakes doesn't really exist. And I was like, wow, this is something I never heard before in the 8 years of studying classical music. Really refreshing.
It sounds like you were meant to play all these various world instruments. Bravo to you. That's great.
Yeah, I meant to make these mistakes.
You mentioned China, and I want to tie that in with an instrument that was considered, or sometimes is still considered, to be a toy wind instrument, and that originates from China back to like 12,000 years ago. It's called the ocarina. But the one I saw you playing recently on Instagram was the bass ocarina.
Yeah.
Do you also play the different size ocarinas in your work?
So this story with ocarinas is also very, very funny. So as I mentioned, with this online flea market during the pandemic, lots of people were giving away ocarinas because they just bought it somewhere, or they thought, like, when you have this, like, I want to do some music, I want to try something out, then they buy it and find out it's not as simple as they thought, and then it just lays in the somewhere in the room, and then when they were doing these big cleanings, they were giving them up. So I bought like 3 instruments. One looked like delphine, another one is a real nice ocarina, and one yellow one. So some little instruments I bought. And then I was asked for movie music and a little bit more serious. So I said, okay, I need like now a real ocarina. I need to find a maker where I could order a real instrument. This is normally what I do. I buy these old instruments from the people which don't use them anymore. And then I learned somehow this intuitive learning and YouTube. And then actually I try to find a maker or professional instrument maker, and then a professional instrument player. So I really learn it in a nicer level. But for like stepping in, it's very nice. So one of these instruments which I found on the flea market, there was written ocarina music on it. So and now a few weeks ago I was like, okay, I need a professional instrument. So I Googled ocarina music. It's probably a company. I found that guy. I found he's in Upper Austria, and I found he's the main delivery guy for the whole Europe.
Wow.
For ocarinas from the whole world. And he was like, I like what you do. Come, we drink wine. I give you some instruments. We will have a nice day. So 2 weeks ago, I went to his place, and he gave me this bass ocarina. I never saw that huge ocarina before, too. I mean, I saw it some people playing, but I never hold it in my hands. And he just, it's wonderful. I gave it to you. It fits you. It's actually, I cannot sell it, this one, because it didn't have the glazour on it, so he couldn't put it on the market. And he gave me a wonderful 3-chamber ocarina, which has the register placed chromatically and plays the whole register of a concert flute. Like, that's incredible. I didn't know ocarina can do that. And he gave me like books. Like, I was traveling back with the train with my baggage. It was full of books about ocarinas of all sizes. So now I have to become an ocarina expert. So that's the story about the bass ocarina. I think it's really crazy.
That's fantastic. My only association with ocarina is, and you probably have these, is the transverse. And here in the States, or maybe by you also, it's called the sweet potato. And I remember the one woodwind doubler that I studied with that did a lot of work with Leonard Bernstein on flute, sax, and clarinet, and I used to sub for him on theater gigs called Broadway musicals here in the States, in New York. And occasionally in the pit orchestra, he would have to play ocarina. Ocarina is also recognized in the States for different sound effects they would use in these classic cartoons from many, many years ago. I'm not sure if it's the same type of relationship that you know of with the ocarina where you live.
I think there are so many types. I mean, there has to be a book about them. But I heard about this sort of sweet potato thing. I think it's this 12 holes ocarina which can play chromatically. Actually, the guy which found it was in Italy, like the old ocarinas from China and so on. But then it was still considered as a toy. And then in 18 something, I have to check exactly, 1830s, something like that, an Italian guy took this toy and he made it to a real instrument which can play chromatically with 12 holes, even with 7 holes, 6. So he just put the ocarina on the other level that it can play with orchestra or like normal instrument. So and then it continued, and they made these 3 chamber ocarinas which I now have, and other crazy stuff. So it's really real instrument.
Yeah, I can tell by the way you're playing it. And, from the history and the research I've done, absolutely, it's meant to play everything. It's just not a novelty toy anymore. So you were recently hired to record various world woodwinds for the Vienna Symphony Orchestra Library. Share with my listeners what this library is all about and who would purchase this specialized package from the Vienna Symphony Orchestra Library.
So the library, so the library was here first. I think they already worked for many, many years. And first they were recording only like orchestra, like classical, making the samples for composers, film composers, like people which don't have a budget to hire the whole orchestra for the recording. They use the samples. But nowadays, even if you have the budget to hire orchestra, before you do so, the producers want to hear your music. So before you hire 60 people to do the magic, you just use samples. And then when the producer says, "Oh, I love it, I give you the budget," then you hire the real musicians. So this is what I'm not a composer, so this is what I understood how it works. And Vienna was always concentrating on the classical like the classical instruments, and I was also recording the flute. I mean, I was like the solo flute they were doing 15 years ago. I was too small, but a few years ago we were recording like Big Bang Orchestra and these kind of things. Like everything was microphone, and we were sitting only the flutes or only the woodwinds or only like all kind of combinations you can use for sound. So that's what they did. And like 1 year ago they asked me if I wanted to record. And they do it in synchron stage, and now there is a synchron stage orchestra where I play. So it's all mixture. So the Vienna Symphony Library was there before, and then they got the concert hall, not the concert hall, the huge recording facility where they record everything, and then they also, and I record for all these movies there as well. And they asked me 1 year ago if I would be interested to record the sample my instruments. So we chose first 9 instruments, and we did it now, and it just came out.
So could you talk about those 9 different ethnic instruments and what countries they're from and what kind of stuff you play them on?
So first I recorded also this fuera, which I mentioned before. That's like an extra package. And then I did the Indian Bansuri. The Chinese Dizi. I did some duduks from Armenia. Then I used gaidita. That's a very interesting instrument. It's also from Slovakia. And it's actually like dudusak, how to say in English dudusak, a bagpipe. but cheap bagpipe. When you need to, when you want to build bagpipe, you need to kill animal. But when you don't have these animals, then you use just the pipe, and that's gajdita. With this ethnic instrument, it's always like the people from the country always think they're so special, but you go behind the borders and there's something very similar from very similar wood with a very similar sound, just playing different folk music. But it's all connected, like there are no borders for music. So the influence goes all around the place. I think that's also fascinating about the world woodwinds. Then I recorded the Chinese hulusi. I love it. It's really amazing instrument. Then Slovak koncovka, that's the end blown. It's like a recorder, but without holes. You just cover and open the ending. So, and koncovka means the ending in Slovak. And then I recorded shakuhachi and all the thin whistles and low whistles. I recorded also Zurna. That's Turkish. That's crazy Turkish instrument playing on the weddings. It's very loud.
Let's talk about your performances that can be heard on numerous film scores and soundtracks like The Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Netflix, Disney Plus, Sony, and the BBC, both as a solo and orchestral musician. What legendary film scenes can my listeners hear you on one of the woodwind instruments?
I mean, I wouldn't say legendary because I don't do it so long. The question is what became legendary. What you said about Lord of the Rings, I didn't record Lord of the Rings, but I recorded the Rings of Power. That's the ones which are streaming right now at this moment.
Terrific.
And we recorded in Sigla stage the main theme. So always when the main theme starts, so that I was playing there. But you cannot hear me soloistic. I'm just in the orchestra, a flute. But those were the Rings of Power. Then we did Harry Potter 20th anniversary. So I guess you can hear, I played piccolo there, so everything loud there with trilling up there, that's me. What I'm really proud of and happy that they called me to work with them, it's for BBC, The Frozen Planet 2. So that's also, I think, still streaming like every week a new, how do you call it? The next, I think there are 6 or 7, and I don't remember the word in English. Folgen. like it's not a one movie, but it's in a 6 parts.
Right. Episodes. Got it.
Episodes, sorry. Yeah. I know this word, but it doesn't come to my mind.
That's okay.
So I recorded on every episode there's some solo with ocarina. And in a few weeks, I think the composers will share behind the scenes. So you will hear me playing and see me playing this little soli. And I'm really happy that they called me, the guys from Hans Zimmer, from Bleeding Fingers. So that's a really achievement for me that I play these ethnic woodwinds only at home since the pandemic started, and now I recorded for BBC. So that's kind of really cool.
Wow, what an achievement.
Kind of funny.
That's incredible. I mean, you made another career just from the World Woodwinds, in addition to your orchestral flute playing, and you're playing on legendary soundtracks that when you were younger, I'm sure you heard the music of Harry Potter.
Of course, yeah. But that wasn't me. I mean, these are spin-offs and all kind of things, right? So I mean, it was legendary. It's legendary, but like they're cooking now the soup. Soup was very good, and now they're cooking. But I'm still totally happy to work on it.
But now you're sitting in that chair, and continuing with that legacy. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like for you to listen when it's all done and go, "Oh wow, I used to listen to this, and now that's me playing."
That's the best feeling, like I go home from the long day and then I sit on the couch and turn on Netflix. I'm like, that's me. You hear that? That's my flute. So that's really, really nice. I also hope that one day I can go to like when the movie starts, the premiere or something, that I can go to this. But I will have such an important part that I'm invited to the opening, like to the first screening. That would be nice. But let's see. It's a really interesting part.
That's a great feather in your cap. Bravo. I've seen you incorporate the art of flute beatboxing in your playing. And that's, I know that became very popular in the States a couple of years ago by a young male flautist. I forgot his name.
Gregor Patlo.
And then I saw you doing it and I'm going, wow, that's really great. And I've seen you do it on various size instruments. So could you share with my listeners what this technique is and where they can hear you play it on social media?
Actually, when I was learning it, I tried myself, do some sound. It sounded nice, but I wanted to get a little bit better. So I Googled this guy, Greg Patilo, and he even has a YouTube kind of masterclass, not masterclass, but he gives little tips how to do something. So I found his playlist with tips how to beatbox, and then I was just watching the videos and try to imitate what he did. So now I beatbox a little bit too. Of course, he's master of beatboxing, but I can do a little bit now too. And of course, since I play these different instruments, I do it too.
Really? Wow.
And it's really fun because flute is percussive, right? It's not only melodies and fast notes. It's also it could be a wonderful wind percussive instrument.
Absolutely. And, it just sounds so contemporary. You do it so well.
Thank you.
I know that you're a Trevor James alto and bass flute artist. So besides recording on the alto and bass flutes, the bigger flutes for my audience that are not familiar with what I'm talking about, do you also get opportunities to play these lower flutes in live performances?
For example, the alto flute is in Stravinsky, in the Sacre print. There's a big alto flute solo also, like in the orchestra. And when I play some shows, sometimes I pick the alto flute because it's just so it's so shiny and big and nice, deep voice, or the bass flute. Like, it's also very impressive. So I use it also for the live shows. And also when you beatbox on this instrument, it has even more, more body. So it's a little bit more, on the microphone, it sounds really good. So I use it. But mostly I record alto and bass flute. Mostly in the latest was in the recordings for Marvel. So they use all the time alto and bass flute. So I was playing like 2-3 times a week for these recordings of the, how it's called, Marvel Universe, all these movies which are coming out.
Well, looking forward to hearing that. That's great. So do you also play the contrabass flute?
Yeah, I even have one video of it, but it's not mine. Like, they are really expensive. So I just borrowed it once when they asked me to play in some flute choir, and then they asked directly me to play this flute because all the other flutists are like, no, I'm playing just my instrument. I'm like, give me that bass, this contrabass flute. That's amazing. I need that.
Wow.
And in Vienna in flute shop, they really bought a really nice new instrument, and it's really a pleasure to play it. And I did some beatboxing on it too. And so one day, hopefully, I can buy it, or half buy it and half get sponsored for the contrabass flute. Who knows? Would be really fun to have it. But the storing it's really big, Like, it's also when you pack it together, it still takes lots of space, like a contrabassoon. So
Yes.
and the flat we live in is already packed with flute. So the bigger it gets, the more difficult it gets. But it's really cool, and I should do it. It's on my list, on my wish list for the future. I will definitely buy it one day.
Right, your bucket list. So I'm assuming you have a video or more of you playing the contrabass flute on Instagram?
Yeah, I will send it to you. And then I got asked so maybe for the library, I will be recording the contrabass flute also now soon.
Wow.
Because the people see them, they get ideas, So
Yes.
everything I post it for fun on this whole Instagram thing, and it became a job. But actually, I just really enjoy the sound, and I'm really fascinated of these new instruments like the bass ocarina, or when I find some new feature, then I just share it because I think it's so fascinating, and then I get a job from a video, and then I'm like, wow, everything's falling in the right place. It was like amazing.
So as a musical artist, how important is the use of social media to you?
It started the other way around, that at first I just did it for fun, and then when it started to bring actually, how to say, clients or customers which were willing to pay me for doing crazy things with flutes, then I started to see that it really means something. So then afterwards I also started to read a little bit more about it, and I know many people and friends which are like, social media, that's nothing for me, like, just you present yourself, and it's all, and everyone is showing themselves in the best light, and it's full of these fake things. And I think you just need to customize it for yourself, the way you are, and surround yourself, like, follow people that you like what they do, like, when you open it, that it inspires you right away, and do things which maybe are interesting. Someone will find you, which will find you interesting. Like, I think for every band, one is someone out there. They just need to find you. And when you are not out there, they will never find you, or it will be more difficult to know more about you.
It does serve a purpose.
Definitely, yeah. And I think it's nice when you get just inspired or you learn something new. And of course, there's lots of junk out there, and you just should stop scrolling, because that's what's like more my generation, like just zombies with the phone. You're just scrolling and going through everything. So when you control it and do more, like when you post more and take less, like less consuming of random stuff, then it should work. But you have to control it, because it's really addicting. It's addictive, yeah. And that's the way it's built. That's the whole sense, that you spend their time. So, and they want to just give you these little doses of happiness, and so you stick to it. But the more I post or share, the less I look what other people do. So I spend the quality time with practicing and not looking at it all the time.
Right.
So I have only a few people which are really follow everything they do, and that even inspires me to go away and do my stuff. So everything is about balance.
Do you have any musical or life philosophies or catchphrases that you live by?
Yes, maybe the one that when I was studying at the university, I was always thinking like what my colleagues do, like the colleague flutists, this environment of competitive musicians. Like everyone is nice and good, but all of them are competition. Like because they want to apply for this one job and 300 people sign for the job, and they just invite to play only 150, and they will take only one person. So it's extreme here, and especially Vienna. Everyone wants to live here. It's really nice city to live. So of course everyone wants to play here in the orchestra. So, and when I finished the university, it's kind of, and I started this instrument, I felt the freedom of I can make mistakes, I can play badly, I don't have to be perfect, and also about the posting on the social media. These musicians mostly don't post because it's not perfect yet, or they just post then when they have a concert, but no one is interested suddenly when you never heard about that person and suddenly the person has a concert. You know nothing, you have no relationship, and you cannot even imagine what that person is going to do because you don't know the random things.
I love the way you explained that. That's absolutely great. And when I watch and listen to you on Instagram, you could tell that you're a very friendly person and very interested in what you're doing. And, you're drawing your audience into, hey, look at what I just found. And I'm just going to give it my all. And I don't care if it's perfect or not. But it really does draw people in, and you're like, wow, this person really has a passion for what they're doing. You could see when you're playing, and I think that's very healthy because, like yourself, I studied at a jazz contemporary college for music, and then I also studied at a conservatory, and I had the same experience. When you're at a conservatory, the feeling is very, very, very competitive, and a lot of the joy is taken out of, why we play Mozart or Bach or Beethoven, and they're just, focused on getting that one orchestral job. But I, like yourself, I mean, you found it with the Woodwinds and the film scores that you're playing on and soundtracks. I found it through my doubling, through playing different flute, sax, and clarinet in different styles. And you start to meet other people that are enjoying the same thing you are. And it's not this very competitive arena. So I love what you said. That's really great and inspiring, and a great message for young listeners that are playing music and thinking of majoring in music.
Yeah, you cannot take yourself too seriously. Do your stuff, and I mean, but I had this feeling like, oh, I started with this ethnic woodwind so late, already like in my 30s now, like 28, 29. I started with it like, wow, if I would start 10 years before that, I would be on very different path now. But but then I think about it, and I got so good in the classical Western flute. I have such a control of my breath and muscles of my mouth and my fingers, thanks to that I was focused only on the classical music and the one flute. So I think everything has to be as it is. So it was very competitive, and I almost felt like stop playing instruments. I was changing teachers, and I didn't. Love to play in the orchestra, but I love to play solo with the orchestra. I love to play in pubs and do different things. And this film music allows all of that. In one session you are in Latin America, and another session you're playing some frozen music of Iceland. So I have this incredible freedom now, but it's good that I have the basics. If I wouldn't have the basics, I think I wouldn't be so fast with picking up the other instruments.
Do you have any upcoming live performances or projects that you'd like to announce?
I play in end of November. I'm invited to South Korea for the first time in my life. I fly to South Korea.
Wow!
And I play 2 solo concerts of Puyara on a world. I didn't know it existed. They just wrote me an email. World Woodwind Festival, and they want to feature artists from different countries, and I will play 2 concerts playing solo Puyara. So that's kind of cool. In Jeju, it's an island under South Korea. So it's holiday island, and I'm really excited to go there, for example.
Wow.
That's one of
Enjoy every minute. That's fascinating. And it's great. You're going to be, playing alongside of other people that have the same interest as you. Where can my listeners find you on social media? We know that you're on Instagram. What about the other platforms?
So I finally made a website. So it's my name, Veronika-Vitazkova.com. And I put there regularly also you can find there my YouTube videos as well. But I also have this part where I have only when you want to only listen to the instrument. So you go to my recordings and you can listen to tracks I recorded with all of these instruments. So there's a picture of the instrument and me playing something typical for that instrument. And I'm very active on Instagram. So that's Veronika_Vitazkova.
Veronika, thank you so much for granting me this interview. You're a great artist. I love everything that you play, all the different various world woodwind instruments. You've made a great career out of everything that you do. You're hooked up with some fantastic and notable people in the music industry. You're at a beautiful place in the world. And I'm going to continue following you, and I look forward to hopefully, speaking to you again in the future.
I thank you very much for kind words, and let's catch up soon for sure.
Very good. Okay, Veronika, have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you too. Bye.
Thanks so much for joining me on today's show. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and could hear why my guest got chops. You can follow my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or Anchor.fm, and stay connected between episodes on Instagram at Got Chops Podcast. Join me on the next episode when we discover why my next guest got chops.